The Republican Party is going after Senator Harry Reid on the issue of race. Specifically, the Republican Party has put out the guy who just said "honest Injun" on national television. They've put him out to go after Harry Reid for Harry Reid's racially insensitive language. Yeah. Liz Cheney tries to cram inconvenient recent history down the memory hole. Chris Hayes of The Nation will be here to help us get it back out. And President Nixon's spy inside the press corps. John Dean will be here to talk about one Nixon dirty trick you will not soon forget. That is all coming up this hour. But we begin tonight with the political firestorm over comments by Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, reported in a really, really gossipy, salacious, tabloidy new book about the 2008 presidential campaign. Senator Reid has publicly apologized today after saying after he was quoted saying that Barack Obama had a good chance of becoming president because he was, quote, light-skinned and didn't have a, quote, Negro dialect, unless he wanted to have one.
I apologize to the president. I apologize to everyone that in the sound of my voice that I could have used a better choice of words. That's where we are, and I'm going to move forward.
Republicans are not moving forward on this. They have seized on Senator Reid's comments. They're demanding that he resign, saying Mr. Reid should step down because former Republican Majority Leader Trent Lott resigned back in 2002 after Mr. Lott said that the nation would have avoided decades of problems if only we'd elected Strom Thurmond when he ran for president on a segregationist platform in the 40s.
When Strom Thurmond ran for president, we voted for him. We're proud of it. And if the rest of the country had followed our lead, we wouldn't have had all these problems over all these years either.
Substantively, what Mr. Lott said and what Mr. Reid said are different. I mean, they're both obviously embarrassing, but Trent Lott was saying the country would have been better off if we had a segregationist president. Harry Reid was reflecting on the political viability of a black candidate today, describing the limits that racism puts on electability. It's a big difference between the content of the two comments. Now, Mr. Reid did use language in making his point that, if not racist, was at least super awkwardly and antiquatedly racial. Leading the charge against Senator Reid in the wake of these embarrassing comments has been Republican Party Chairman Michael Steele.
It's inappropriate, absolutely. So if the standard is the one that we saw with Trent Lott as speaker, as a leader at the time, then I think this absolutely falls in that category.
It is, of course, awkward right now to have Michael Steele be the man out front making the case that someone should resign for using racially insensitive language. Maybe Republicans could have picked someone other than Mr. Steele, given Mr. Steele's own recent
Our platform is one of the best political documents that's been written in the last 25 years. Honest Injun on that.
Honest Injun. Does the fact that Michael Steele recently made a really racially insensitive remark on television mean that he can't be offended by somebody else's other racially insensitive remark? Of course it doesn't mean that. But it does highlight the complications here. It highlights that a politician or a public figure using really inappropriate language about race is not exactly a rare occurrence these days. And the consequences for people when something like this happens in public, the consequences are all over the map. For example, remember this one?
This fellow here over here with the yellow shirt, Macaca, or whatever his name is, he's with my opponent.
The Macaca moment. That was former Republican governor of Virginia, George Allen. That single Macaca moment pretty much doomed his run for Virginia Senate seat and any future political aspirations he might have had. Then there was former Republican House Speaker Newt Gingrich waxing ineloquent about the Spanish language back in 2007.
We should replace bilingual education with immersion in English so people learn the common language of the country and so they learn the language of prosperity, not the language of living in a ghetto.
Spanish, the language of living in a ghetto. Unlike George Allen, Newt Gingrich survived those comments politically. He made an apology that he delivered in Spanish. Mr. Gingrich continues to be one of the most sought-after Sunday talk show guests in the Republican Party, for what that's worth. On the Democratic side, there's noted race fumbler Joe Biden.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking. I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Mr. Biden, of course, survived those racial gaffes and went on to become vice president of the United States alongside the clean guy. Then there are those who not only survive racially charged statements, but sometimes seem to have their careers thrive in part because of them.
White men were 100% of the people that wrote the Constitution, 100% of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, 100% of the people who died at Gettysburg and Vicksburg, probably close to 100% of the people who died at Normandy. This has been a country built basically by white folks. But if I look at the U.S. track team in the Olympics and they're all black folks, I don't automatically assume it's discrimination.
That was Pat on this show last year, Pat Buchanan. We ran a correction on some of the factual errors made in those statements. But, I mean, as you can see, Pat was back on the air today talking about Harry Reid's race problem. Sometimes racially charged comments just fly under the radar. That appears to be the case with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina.
I have 12% unemployment in South Carolina. My state's on its knees. I have 31% African-American population in South Carolina.
Unemployed and black. Yeah, Senator Graham making the case for how much it hurts his state to have so many black people in it. Senator Graham also suggesting that having a lot of black people in his state would somehow make health reform harder to do there. But it's not just people who are in politics and in political commentaries. Some of the most severe punishments for racially insensitive comments have come in the world of entertainment and sports.
That little monkey gets loose, doesn't he?
Famed broadcaster Howard Cosell there, referring to an African-American football player. Mr. Cosell stepped down from Monday Night Football about 2 months later. Also, remember football prognosticator Jimmy the Greek?
They take over coaching like everybody wants them to. There's not going to be anything left for the white people. I mean, all the players are black. I mean, the only thing that the whites control is the coaching jobs. Now, I'm not being derogatory about it, but that's all that's left for them.
Yeah, Mr. Snyder was fired from CBS Sports soon after in the wake of similar comments. There was, of course, also the abbreviated career of Rush Limbaugh, football commentator on ESPN.
I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well.
Mr. Limbaugh consequently resigned from ESPN, and many in the NFL recently almost revolted after there was talk of Mr. Limbaugh buying an NFL team. Mr. Limbaugh's radio show, however, continues to thrive and continues to provide an outlet for him to do things like playing a song called Barack the Magic Negro. Actor Mel Gibson disappeared into rehab for a while after his drunken rant to police officers against, quote, effing Jews. The Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world. Mr. Gibson blamed the tequila for that. Then there's talk show host and Fox News personality Glenn Beck.
I'm not saying that he doesn't like white people. I'm saying he has a problem. This guy is, I believe, a racist.
After Glenn Beck said that about President Obama, advertisers fled from his Fox News show, even though it gets very good ratings. And in putting together this list today of recent or prominent racial gaffes in America, I have to say there were about 25 more we came up with without doing too much research. Public figures using really racially insensitive or downright racist language or comments happens a lot. So much so that there is a big data set for trying to understand the likely consequences for a person being caught out saying something like this. But even with that big data set, even with all of these examples from which to build some sort of predictive model, there really is no predictability to the consequences. It seems like it is different for everyone and in every circumstance. In the case of Harry Reid, Democrats seem pretty unified in support of him. His very positive public policy record on civil rights might be a big help for him there. President Obama had already said that he accepted Harry Reid's apology for his recent remarks. Mr. Obama elaborated on that tonight in an interview with TV One. Joining us now is Tricia Rose. She's a professor and chair of the Africana Studies Department at Brown University. Professor Rose, it's good to have you on the show again. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk about Harry Reid and Trent Lott. Politically, there's a direct line being drawn between them as if their comments were substantively similar. I explained in the introduction that I do not see them as substantively similar. Do you?
Not at all, and you did a wonderful job with that. I mean, I'm actually kind of flabbergasted by the degree to which these vastly different statements with entirely different meanings, context, and intents can be collapsed. And it's really quite dangerous, frankly. It's only enhancing what is already a deep level of illiteracy and fear and anxiety about really addressing race.